Hey, we're live on a live Locked On Lions postcast after a disappointing loss at home to the Minnesota Vikings. Jake Riepma and Bradford Banta with you. Bradford, I've got nothing. Hopefully you do.
Yeah, Bradford Banta here, 22-year NFL veteran. Yes, the Lions lost 27-24 to Minnesota, but let's call it what it was. It was a close call. And if you build control, you got to learn from it. Jake,
One pride. It's the Lions Squad. Everything Detroit Lions every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Motor City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the roar of the Lions to the next great chapter, the Lions Squad Show starts now.
Man, we're kicking off like the Lions, just a little off rhythm today. Gee whiz, man.
That's perfectly said. I tell you what, I was fast on the intro button because I am just I'm riled up, ready to go. But Jake Riepma alongside Bradford Banta, and our intro was similar to the Lions' performance today. Out of sync, out of rhythm, and the Minnesota Vikings come in and get the victory 24-17. This is your Locked On Lions post-game show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Roadmap today is pretty simple. We've got to clean up the Lions' mistakes. We'll go over them. It's a very surprising loss for the Detroit Lions at home. A bounce back is needed. Bradford Banta and I will take you through it. But the Lions out of sync after the bye week. Bradford, before we hopped on, you and I both said lots to clean up after a surprising loss.
Boy, was there ever. And I tell you what, the Minnesota Vikings defense did a fantastic job with the smoke and mirrors of the perception of blitzing and bringing the house. And whenever they did bring the house, they were effective. One of the things that you would like to change up just a little bit, knowing the situation and knowing you got Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, I'd like to see Montgomery back there a little bit more, knowing that they're going to be in a pass blocking type situation. Got a little bit more heft. I know Gibbs has a little bit more quickness, but he got beat at the wrong time, and it was not pretty.
The Lions also had some costly turnovers, and nobody is. It's one of those games where you're going to take a look at the tape, and nobody is off limits. You know, there's somebody that's going to be deserving of criticism just about on most plays. But the Lions still with the never quit attitude did end up making it a close game with that touchdown down the stretch there to Goff connecting with Jameson Williams, which was a tremendous play. And you have everything on the line for that 3rd down and 5. One of those plays, Bradford Banta, where, you know, you try and get in the mind of Kevin O'Connell, the play caller for the Minnesota Vikings. He's got a young quarterback in McCarthy. And to the Vikings' credit, to JJ's credit, he connects on a pass to Jordan Addison, first catch of the game, and in some one-on-one coverage. And not that the game comes down to one play, but when you look back at this one, that was the turning point and the final nail in the coffin for the Vikings.
That was, yeah. I mean, and kudos to Kevin for calling the play, and he's the one that had the onions to do it. So it was, and JJ was able to put that ball on the money, and the Vikings were able to come up with it. And you know, I saw a comment a little bit earlier. Why wasn't Whiteside, on? Was it Addison that caught the ball?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a matter of, was he out there? That's my question. But another question, there's so many questions, Jake. I just don't know where to start.
The good news is we got an hour.
Yeah, we got an hour. Are we going to figure it out? No. But at the same time, we're going to talk about some stuff, and we're going to talk about what we saw, and also, what can be fixed. Is there a lot to be fixed? Yes, there is. One thing that truly stood out to me, just looking at the statistics, was the Vikings were able to pick up 5 first downs via penalty. That's the aggravating part. That's the aggravating part.
Yeah,
That's
and
that's
where I want. Right, that's where I wanted to start before we get into offense, defense, individual plays, drives, that sort of thing. Just as an overall reaction to this game, I'm watching it thinking, man, this team is just out of sync. There's rust. There's the lack of discipline. Just so many uncharacteristic components to a Dan Campbell team that you're not expecting to see, on top of being out of a bye week. And so, from your coaching perspective, do you think, coming out of the bye week, there's something to be said about just the time it took the Lions to get going today and the rust that showed, and combined with the number of penalties? Certainly the proof is in the results, but do you think the bye week contributed to that?
Yes, and I mean, yeah, I do, because the team was on a roll. They were coming off of a high, beating Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football. And now they hit a bump in the road, hit a little pothole, so it punctured the tire a little bit. Now we got to pull over. We have to patch it up and continue on this journey. Fortunately, I believe, if I may be saying this, and I don't want to be speaking out of turn, but I think the Packers lost as well.
Correct.
So
yep.
that helped to jumble up the division a little bit. And now, but we did lose to a divisional foe, and the Packers lost to the Carolina Panthers. So that's, if you lose a game and a half instead of just a game. If you lose to a divisional foe, that could, at the end, if the Lions get on a run here, come back and bite them in the derriere. They have to know. I mean, everybody knows it. Everybody walking out of the stadium, fans included, that one hurt, because you had a quarterback that was playing just three. He's making his third start with J.J. McCarthy. He's had a chance to learn behind Sam Darnold. He's had a chance to learn behind Carson Wentz. Observe those guys, but they wanted, and he started the season, and he's 2-1 as a starter now. So the kid wins. We had him at Michigan whenever I was there. He is a fighter. He's a scrapper. He just finds a way. But he's not the end all be all at quarterback. And the defensive game plan, I was watching how they took care of Hutch. They didn't. I mean, Tampa Bay was double and triple teaming him. Minnesota may have double teamed him a little bit, but they had a little bit more mobility with JJ running the ship at quarterback. Defensively, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about the offense, because the game was more about them. Because I thought the first drive they came out and they were clicking on all cylinders, and they were, they hit LaPorta. A couple of notes that I had written down here is, impressive first drive, 6 plays, and it was truly featuring 87 all the way down the field. And then he had to catch, was it the 4th down for 40 yards? And
both the Lions touchdowns were on 4th downs early in the first 2 were on the 4th down conversions. Yeah,
and one of the notes that I made here was, should the Detroit Lions automatically go to 4th down on every down because of their success? They should have, but they didn't. But just because of their success, they were 3 of 3 on 4th downs today, which was great. They were, give and take on 3rd down. And I think you can throw that statistic out of the window, the 3rd down success rate for the Detroit Lions. You can throw that out the window, given as many times as the Detroit Lions go for it on 4th down. But they did have success on 4th down, but I thought it was an impressive drive. And then after that, it was a 3 and out. Then they had another punt. Then they had the touchdown to Montgomery. Another 3 and out, 3 and out. 3 and out, and then the fumble. Then they had the field goal block, and then they had the touchdown to JMO. It was just, there was no rhythm on offense. They couldn't get the run game going. They couldn't get the play action game going, and they just couldn't get the pass game going. Something was rattling them. Was it the pressure up the middle or the supposed pressure that they possibly had? I just can't put my finger on it, but something. Goff was not himself tonight, and he was due to have one of these games. Did he? Yeah, he did. He did not have a good game. I mean, he was, his statistically, I mean, he was 66 or 67% completion percentage. He's 25 of 37, with a 108 rating. But it just But he was sacked 5 times.
Yeah, very meh. I think the offensive line conversation, whether it be the health of the offensive line, their ability to create running lanes and work cohesively as a unit, all of that is at play here. You had Mahogany go out. You had Ratledge go out and back in, and just the shuffling of who's in at what time became apparent that there was just no continuity amongst that entire unit. And I think it does start up front with that offensive line. I also think it was just an observation I made with Goff is he had happy feet a couple of times, and that's just so unlike him. And especially when you combine the historical data with this Detroit Lions team against Brian Flores and that Vikings defense over the course of the last several years. Flores known as a guy that loves to blitz. We talked about that on Thursday's episode, and Goff had been so good against the blitz. And today it wasn't even necessarily the blitz, but the Vikings were getting pressure with 4 guys. They were winning the battle in the trenches, whether it be stopping the run or getting pressure on Goff. And there was just a mental block that was then reflected physically for this Lions offense, I felt, for the majority of this game. And you hate to just tip the cap to the Minnesota Vikings, especially given the low point of the season that they came in at and the struggles that they had, but they were a different team today.
That's, and I think you put it best. Tip of the cap to the Minnesota Vikings. They came to play. And the Detroit Lions, they came to play, but not at the level that the Minnesota Vikings were taking it to. And that was the concerning part. They'll go back. They'll review the film. They'll watch it tomorrow. And then they'll get back to work and take it from there. This is going to be a good look in the mirror type moment, and ask each one of them have to ask themselves, okay, we just got our asses kicked. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to respond? This is going to be a similar type response that they had versus whenever they played Green Bay. Are you going to respond in that manner and come out and light the world on fire? That's what we're looking for.
Right. And if we know anything about this Lions team, they don't lose 2 games in a row. And the culture is that of certainly a team that's willing and able to come back and bounce back. And that's going to have to definitely be the approach moving forward. But let's take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll do a deeper dive on the defense and what went right, where were some areas that hurt this team, and we'll talk a little special teams as well. I want to mix that in. You made some really good observations on a couple of the big plays in this game that were on special teams as well. So that's all coming up next. It's the Locked On Lions post-game show with Jake Riepma and Bradford Banta. We miss you, Nat. Nat, we know you're out there. Nat, we miss you. She is traveling with the Detroit Pistons. We should have said that from the beginning, but Nat's as hardworking as they come, and sometimes the calendar's got her on the road with the Detroit Pistons. So she's with us in spirit and will be with us on Thursday. So there you have it. All right, deep dive on the defense is next on a Locked On Lions post-game show right here on the Locked On Lions podcast network.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, back with you on the Locked On Lions podcast network. I think we're supposed to hit this close right there. There we go. We're all over the place.
Where did he come from?
All over the place there, Bradford Banta, just keeping you on your toes.
I got
on
you.
the Locked On Lions post-game show right now. You know, sometimes you got to upgrade. They didn't love my my voice on a couple of these commercials, so they upgraded. That's one thing that was easy to do. No, I kid. Lions fall to the Minnesota Vikings. Let's reset things a little bit here. If you're joining us live on the YouTube stream, we appreciate that. Let's get your comments in as well. I'm sure there's probably some Vikings in the chat, and you know what? We wouldn't be. Let's throw some Vikings fans on the screen here. From Brent Fiore, Skull, Low Energy Lions. Yeah, that's right. They say Skull. I always forget that. Which I do say I want to go to a Vikings game sometimes when everybody's doing the chant at the beginning of the game. I got to give them credit. That looks like it's a good way to start a game. Yeah. How is the environment? Am I giving it too much credit?
No, it's a great environment. It's a great place to play a game. So
all right.
That's off.
There you go. Deep dive on this defense. They do create the one turnover. I thought it was really kind of a wonky play on the interception from Terrion Arnold, but his first career interception. Let's be fair to our guy. As oftentimes as we criticize him, let's give him his props on the interception there. But I want to actually, I'll toss it over to you, Bradford, where you want to start with this defense, because some guys were back, some weren't. No Kirby Joseph in this one. Brian Branch back making a few plays. I did think it was Terrion Arnold's best game in a while as a Detroit Lion, but still some things to improve upon.
No, look, hats off to number 6. I mean, it's one of his best games that he's played. I mean, simply because he didn't get any penalties.
Yeah.
He had well, you're right. Everybody else did. He ended up with 3 tackles, with the 1 interception. He had 3 passes defensed. Kudos to him, because they were going after Terrion Arnold and in the beginning, and they wanted to see what he was all about. A note that I made is I thought the tackling at the beginning of the game, especially in the first half, I thought the tackling wasn't as crisp as it's been before they went into the bye week. And I'm talking primarily defensive line and linebackers. It got better as the game went along, but there were some missed tackles, and I was just like, you wanted to see better, because I've seen it, and you just wanted them to pick up where they left off before they went on break. Now, continue that. Okay, now let's hope the rust is knocked off, and then we continue to go from there. I thought the secondary cleaned up their act immensely. There were a couple of calls where you're just like, that was, was it? Yes, it was. The ones that I thought were good calls was the one on Hutch, was the personal foul on Hutch. Yeah. I thought that was a good call. And then also the personal foul on Campbell. I thought that was a good call. You have to call it. You have to. If I know you had texted me during the middle of the game, and hey, how do you not do that? These guys are athletic enough. All he has to do is just talking about Campbell. All he has to do is just turn his shoulder just a hair. I'd say 10 to 15 degrees to where he's not full on just both shoulders just landing right on top of the quarterback. If he can do that, they'll let him get away with that type of landing on the quarterback. But he showed no inclination of trying to turn the shoulders, and they hit him on it, and rightfully so. And then Hutch is probably going to get a fine for that, possibly, because it was a leg whip type situation. It was a similar situation that happened 2 weeks ago versus Tampa Bay that wasn't called. And who was it? McNeil? Who?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the player that did get fined for that leg whip type situation. I would imagine that Hutch is going to be hearing from the officials or from the league office sometime this week.
Some Michigan on Michigan crime there. I also thought the Campbell one, I know you and I were texting about it, and the point that was made on the broadcast with who was it, Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, which, by the way, Burkhardt was doing the post game of the World Series last night / this morning, and then into Detroit. I mean, that's the kudos to him, but at the same time, that's a pretty fun 24 hours. You get a World Series and then an NFL game. But the point they made that I really agree with is the way it's, and you have to enforce it. And I'm not disagreeing or discounting anything you just said, because that's all true, and that's the spirit of the rule, and obviously designed to protect the quarterbacks, but it rewards the offense for a total breakdown and letting Campbell run completely free and totally missing the blitz pickup. And I know he was hit hard on the pass, McCarthy, that is. I don't remember the exact outcome of the play, but point being, the Lions defense doing everything right except the penalty. And it seemed like maybe this is just when it rains, it pours, but it seemed like there were a couple of those penalties in particular that gave the Vikings first downs where the Lions do everything right. But that's why it's the ultimate team game. You have to have all 11 guys do something right and not pick up a penalty.
Right. I just, you have to function as one. And whenever everybody's functioning as one, it's a thing of beauty. I actually thought that the defense played pretty doggone well. And they did not, they weren't given the best field position to defend whenever the Vikings scored their touchdowns. I mean, you look at it, their Minnesota Vikings first touchdown. Where did they start with the ball? They started on the Detroit 36-yard line. So Minnesota gets a touchdown. Then they come back, they get another touchdown on the next drive. They start on the Minnesota 36. So they're driving the field there. Then they get a field goal, and then the touchdown that they scored in the third quarter was off of the Montgomery fumble, and that drive started on the Detroit 35-yard line. Yep. And then, then the block field goal, they returned it all the way to the Detroit 26, and then Minnesota kicked a field goal from there. You're asking the defense to not defend. To defend not much territory,
right?
And that's hard. You're putting them in a difficult position because you're in scoring position once you cross essentially the 35-yard line. And given today's kickers, those guys will put it out there from probably the 40 plus. So being able to kick a field goal.
Let's shift gears and talk about exactly that. Some big plays in special teams on this one, none larger than the blocked field goal, because at that point in the game, Lions trying to make it a 24-20 game, which totally changes, the way the rest of that game plays out, just being down 4 compared to the Vikings making it a 10-point game after the blocked field goal. what did you see as a special teams guy? It looked like operationally the snap was good, hold was good, just and blocking might have been good as well. Just a low kick from Bates.
Yeah, that's all I saw. And he has a propensity to do that from time to time. They've been able to get away with it. And the special teams from the Minnesota Vikings just exploited it. And there wasn't super, penetration from the Minnesota Vikings player. It was in the A gap. It was, oh gosh, who is it? Rodriguez, one of the guy that got the block. I can't remember who got
Robin,
it from
maybe. Yeah, let me check.
Yeah, but anyway, I'll keep talking while you're looking. I think it was just a low kick by Jake Bates. That's all it was. And they were able to get like 1 yard of penetration. He got his arm up. Nobody jumped. And it's one of these deals where the ball just found the arm or found the hand. And it was a clean block. Minnesota picked it up and then returned it all the way to the 26-yard line of Detroit.
Yeah, you're right. Rodriguez with the block. Isaiah Rodgers is who picked it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my bad.
No, all good. We got it right. That's the important thing. So, but I there was that. Then you had the long kickoff return by Minnesota at the beginning of the game. And they, just answering Detroit's opening touchdown. And then you follow it up. It's kind of deflating for a team. I've been on both sides whenever that has occurred. And it's just really just like, oh man. I mean, we had a great opening drive, and then we follow it up with this type of kickoff coverage. And then there was another one that was called back because of a holding penalty that Minnesota actually scored upon. And I would imagine around the league that they're going to be looking at this return and what did they do and what did the returner do? What kind of blocking scheme were they running just to open up that type of hole? So it's going to be an interesting week, and I will be curious to see what kind of shuffling they're going to be doing on the kickoff coverage unit when it pertains to those type of situations. Because now we're going to start getting into the second half of the season, and we're into Movember now, and we got to start making a run towards the playoffs. And it is truly a jumbled up situation in the NFC North division. And it's going to be a fun run all the way to week 18 of the season. And
Lions will be at the Bears in week 18.
Yeah. And it's going to be fun to watch, but it's just we need to iron out all of these little hiccups, so-called hiccups. And once we get that, because I mean, my opinion, Jack Fox was probably the MVP of the game.
Yeah. He flipped the field a couple of times and had the Lions, found a way to come out on top. I think the way he dictated field position and the changing of field position and some of those hidden yardage plays on punts that Jack was so good at booming with 0 yards return. The net punting was just incredible today. But of course, that's not what everybody wants to talk about when you lose a divisional game at home. But you and I, as special teams guys, that punt operation was great today. But let's take a quick timeout. When we come back, I know all the comments that we continue to have come flooding in are all about the play calling and the offense. So we will continue to discuss the Lions offense and turn our attention to some of the play calling and what the Lions could have done better. We'll also continue to look ahead at the divisional outlook because the Packers lost, the Bears won, the Vikings won, and as Bradford put it best, it is getting jumbled up in the NFC North. So the post-game show rolls along after this. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment on the Locked On Lions post-game show. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Supply House. Listen up, Locked On Lions podcast listeners. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you got to get your crew moving forward with Supply House. You order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Real-time inventory, honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while the leading customer service always has your blind side covered. How about that? Let me read that again. Industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. I like that. If you need parts for a project fast, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about game changer. It's the part finder tools and 3D schematics that can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And how about the Trade Master perks like priority shipping, dedication, and support? That makes the whole process smoother. So join the free Trade Master program today. Score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line, all by visiting supplyhouse.com. That's where you have to go to sign up, supplyhouse.com for free, and use promo code SHNFL5. That's SHNFL5 for 5% off your order. 5% off your first order using code SHNFL5, supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, let's keep it moving here on the Locked On Lions post-game show. Your comments are welcome. And just because I've seen probably 500 comments come in about the play calling and Morton, some upset with the screen passes, some upset with the inability to run the ball, some concerned about Jahmyr Gibbs being held in check. So there's a lot to unpack when the Lions fall 27-24, which I also find kind of how spoiled we are as Lions fans when they have a game like this that they don't score 35 points. I mean, they came into this game third in the NFL in scoring, averaging a little more than 30 points a game. And so they weren't that far off their season average, but it just felt like this team, this offense in particular, was out of rhythm, out of sync all day.
It felt like it because they were. I mean, it's just plainly put, they didn't get anything going. And I felt like the third drive in the second half, I felt like they had a little juice. They got a field goal out of it. But they were completing balls to 14, to 87, to 1, to 5. They were completing balls all over the field, and you saw them just a little bit of pep in the step during that drive. And that's what was missing. And I don't know what it takes to get that back. They're going to get it back next week. I have no doubt about that. But they have to be able to bring it week in, week out. They have to learn from these situations. And you figured they would have learned from last year, as far as coming out of the bye week, how to prepare for a game, how to be ready, and come out firing on all cylinders. And then, because how long has Flores been there? Has he been there the entire time? Yeah, he's been there the entire time. O'Connell's been there. Yeah. Just go back and look at your notes and see, what has he done in the past versus the Detroit Lions? Because they're essentially running basically the same offense that they've run with Ben Johnson. Just talking about with the motions, it's just the play calling is varied up just a little bit, because they do use some imaginative schemes, but at the same time, it's when you called them, and I just didn't see it today. But the pep in the step on that third drive in the second half is something you need to have from the jump, and you need to bring it every time. And they brought it the first drive, but after that, you peaked, and then you took a little bit of a lull, And then you get into that other drive in the second half that I'm talking about, and you started ascending. And then, okay, now our back is against the wall. We have to come out swinging. And that's whenever you see the tempo. Now, could they have gone in up-tempo type play calling whenever the coaches sensed a little bit of a lull? That's something they have to ask themselves. I didn't think about it during the game, and I just happened to think about that right now. But just to switch it up a little bit, you know, you heard Tom Brady talking about the 1 ball, the 2 ball, the 3 ball, all that kind of stuff. Well, this is your curve ball. This is the 2 ball. You know, we're gonna run the up tempo a little bit now, and just to jolt ourselves back into playing the game, because at that point the offense, it was just steady Eddie, and it was just it nothing was working.
Right. I also think, to that same point, I mean, one of the best drives of the game, it helps having the big play touchdown to JMO, but when there was a sense of urgency and when there was a change in pace, it seemed to light a spark under this Lions offense, but too little, too late type of thing. I saw one comment just in regards to the concern of Jahmyr Gibbs, and obviously he was completely held in check in this game, and so I understand the notion to bring that up, and there have been some games this year where he's held in check, but I don't think it's to the point where you start having this feel of concern by any means. And you look at his stats, 9 carries for 25 yards, so obviously bottled up there, and in the passing game 3 catches for 3 yards. He wasn't able to get loose today, and when he does get loose, we saw against Tampa Bay, he can run 30 miles per hour, whatever it is. But do you think that's more just Minnesota having the right game plan today?
What I saw out of Minnesota today was definitely attacking the A gaps, and then what they did an excellent job with the linebackers and secondary players was really condensing the edges and not allowing those runs to break outside. And that's where Jahmyr Gibbs really gets a majority of his yardage. So it was interesting, and I don't know, it was a disappointing loss today. I don't know how else to frame it, Jake. I was just very disappointed with the way they came out and played.
Yep. I think it could be also, hopefully, if I'm being optimistic and hopeful here, one of those wake-up call losses. If you look at the Lions' remaining schedule, I mean, you got the Commanders next weekend in Washington, or I guess on the road, and then Sunday Night Football against the Eagles. Obviously, that's a big one. Sunday Night Football against the Eagles, and then home games against the Giants, and then on Thanksgiving against the Packers. So obviously big divisional games there. And at 5-3, you certainly haven't put yourself in a great position, but it's not panic time. However, it is time for time to respond.
Yeah. The goal now is make it into the playoff, and then we'll let the cards fall where they may. You want to have momentum going into the playoffs, but it all starts next week versus the Commanders, and then playing them, playing them in the DC area. It's going to be fun to see how they respond. Talking about the Detroit Lions, it'll be fun to see how they respond and how they bounce back and how they manufacture a win next week versus the Commanders. Because if I'm not mistaken, Jaden Daniels did play today. So he did play today. And then, just working your way through, you're going to have the Eagles. So, and we talked about this last week. But there's a lot of stuff that they're going to have to clean up from today, and just to make themselves better. So it'll be interesting to see the rest of the way the season plays out. But you have to concentrate on this next game, but you also have to think about the future. And the whole reason you start the season is to make it to the playoffs. That's when the proverbial third season starts, because you got the preseason, regular season, and then the third season is the playoffs. So let's get amped up. Let's win the games necessary to make it in. And then let's go make a run and put together a run at the right time.
That sounds like a good plan to me. What also sounds like a good plan to me, stick around. We'll do a little Q&A. We'll answer some comments. We will have our final thoughts and tie a bow on this one as we cruise along on the Locked On Lions post-game show right here on the Locked On Lions podcast network. Today's episode of the Locked On Lions podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on out to FanDuel.com, that's FanDuel.com, to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Final segment of the post-game show. Jake Riepma, Bradford Banta, and Natalie will be back with us. The Pistons on the road to the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that's what we said. So, yeah. Nat, hopefully you're having some Memphis barbecue when you land there in Memphis, right? If you're going to Memphis, that's got to be.
You got to get to barbecue.
Yeah.
Got to.
Has to. I know the Pistons were in Mexico City last night against the Dallas Mavericks. So how about that? We're all over the place here on the Locked On Lions post-game show. Also, Bradford, it just occurred to me, I'm probably going to be fired from filling in on the daily Locked On Lions show since they didn't go in fourth and win. I mean, come on, that's the real problem.
I guess Gary's not going to be able to go on vacation anymore. So
that's right. That's right. I gave him my all, but man, luck was not on my side. So I think this is an interesting point here from Michael Power 65551. Maybe I had a few too many fives in there. All three of our losses are to teams that showed up to play, not the weak teams that we beat up. It says all it needs to. They're not ready for the Super Bowl. Let's pump the brakes a little bit, but quality opponent. Yes, the Lions have lost to Packers, perennial playoff team, Chiefs, obviously, and this Vikings team, now that they're back healthy, looked like a playoff team today. Bradford, your thoughts on the Lions being able to stack up against quality opponents?
It's going to be interesting to me. The only reason I say that is how are they going to manage the injuries? Because it seems like every game that their entire roster, their 48-man roster, is you should have some O linemen that get DNPs. That means did not play. That did not occur today. There were some O linemen that went down, and it seemed like everybody played. And then I want them to make a push, and I want this team to be good, as I'm sure everybody on this call wants these guys to be good, but they have to bring it week in, week out. I want to say that the Vikings are laying the blueprint defensively on how to attack the Detroit Lions. The Lions have to study this film very well and then counteract every one of the defensive plays that made them stumble today. They have to come back and they have to make sure that they have an answer for everything that was thrown at them. And that's the beauty of the NFL season. It's how do you react after you get punched? Today, they were punched. Tomorrow, how do you bounce back? That's one of the things I love about the NFL game. It's going to be fun to see how the Lions respond, how they come back, and put wins in the column on the left instead of putting losses in the column on the right.
Yeah, and it's a copycat league. We talk about that all the time. And the film out today in stopping this potent Lions offense with so many weapons is going to be, or at least attempted to be, replicated by other defensive coordinators throughout the NFL. And that's what happens on a weekend to weekend basis. And so I'm curious from an NFL coaching perspective, when you were coaching, whether it be with the Saints or with the Colts, how much conversation goes into, hey, now, let's say for Washington, for example, hey, we've got the Lions this weekend, and last weekend, they were held in check pretty good. Let's take a look at what Brian Flores and company did.
No, a ton. I mean, that's how they're going to be tested in the first quarter of the game this coming week versus versus the Commanders. That's how they're going to be tested. And if they have answers for it, then it's going to be back to business as normal for the Washington Commanders playing defense. But they're going to want to see if the Lions have answers for everything that they stumbled on today. And and once they figure that out, and if it works, the Commanders are going to keep doing it. And if it doesn't, then they're going to go back to playing Commanders ball. Dan Quinn does an excellent job. He's a defensive coach. He's also the head coach of the team, but they do an excellent job. And we'll get more into that this coming Thursday. It was nothing more than we got punched in the mouth today. And, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen in the NFL season. It's happened to the Lions 3 times this year. It's all in how they respond. Now, under Dan Campbell's, regime, the Lions have responded well after a loss. And that's going to be the exciting part that I am going to be looking forward to whenever they play the Washington Commanders.
For sure. Some of the post-game comments I'm looking up on Twitter, obviously disappointment and that sort of thing. No panic. I think that's what you would expect. I will say I anticipate Dan Campbell and really both the coordinators, Morton and Shepard. And Shepard, we talked quite a bit about, him as at least, or I talked quite a bit about him as an LSU grad, and, his name being at least floated out there by alumni, boosters, nothing of substance by any means. And I only say this just because I think other people are going to say it, and I want to put the kibosh on it, not as a, opening up a can of worms or anything like that. But I just, for those that would say, oh, Kelvin Shepard's thinking about that LSU job, I don't think that even is remotely a possibility.
I don't even see that entering the picture.
Right.
I really don't. That has nothing to do with what happened today. If anything, I thought the defense played an excellent game. I mean, you look at, just look at the stats. I mean, they every time that Minnesota scored, it was on a short field. Just about. There was one drive where they drove the length of the field, but they were 33% on third down. I mean, the red zone, they were 60% efficiency. They were 67% on goal to go efficiency. Look, the defense played well. I mean, they had yeah, I mean, JJ McCarthy had 116 yards passing. Come on. You know, they had 142 yards rushing. I mean, offensively, Minnesota had that. They had an okay day. It's just they had the benefit of field position. And they also had the benefit where they made all their field goals and we didn't. And then one of the missed field goal that we did have was blocked, and it gave the Vikings a chance to get in an excellent scoring position at the Detroit 26-yard line. It's a field position game, and we are by no means saying goodbye to a playoff run at all. They're going to regroup. They're going to bounce back. You have your major players all returned with the exception of Kirby Joseph. They will be on point from here on out. Now, they have to stay healthy. That's the key, because, you know, this window, I would say, is probably, including this season, this window is probably another 2-3 years, somewhere around there, unless they start to upgrade. Now, Goff is playing still at a high level, but he's still, I mean, what year is he in? 12th, 13th year, somewhere around there. And, you know, he's still playing at a high level. But they're going to need to find players that back this up. Now, the Legion of Whom showed their worth this past week, you know, versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, or 2 weeks ago versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. You know, have they found some players there? And then they're going to keep, and I tell you who has surprisingly played well this season is Muhammad.
Yeah,
he has done an excellent job. He's done an excellent job, you know, filling in. There was one time today, I think it was on McCarthy's touchdown that he ran for. It was a TE stunt where Muhammad was probably hutch stunted inside into the inside A gap, and Muhammad got pinched between the guard and the tackle, you know, and something tells me that he was probably had contained on that play, but he got pinched and McCarthy was able to break containment. And that's where it was just, you know, not a good situation.
Yeah, I just saw McCarthy got emotional in his post-game press conference for the reception he got from his teammates post-game in the locker room. And, you know, that's a young kid that's making his mark. And we, at least I know I have talked about the Vikings' decision to move on from Sam Darnold and invest in JJ McCarthy and the pressure that puts on him. And, you know, this is just his third start. There's been some ups and downs, but you know, for a kid that went to Michigan and then to have a big moment like that at Ford Field, you can see why he's emotional, or certainly understand why he's emotional post game, but good for him. So Lions will look to bounce back against the Washington Commanders. That'll be a Sunday later game. So we got the 4:00 window in that game, but we'll have our post game show for that one. Of course, we'll have our weekly live show. You won't want to miss that. That'll be on Thursday. Nat will be back with us. We'll have the rose between the two thorns back like we always do on the Locked On Lions squad show. But Bradford, as we wrap it up, any final thoughts looking ahead to the upcoming week?
No, it's going to be, again, you learn from your mistakes. What can the Detroit Lions take away from this loss? What did they do good? What did they do bad? Obviously, the bad is going to be more than the good. And then you look at it from an individual standpoint, you know, individually, what did that individual learn about themselves? How did they play? Can you look yourself in the mirror? And, you know, and then you just build on it. And you continue to build. And that's why we you play each game week in, week out, and that's the beauty of the competition of football, because at the end of the week, you either win or you lose. In Green Bay's case, sometimes they tie, but no, but usually I would say 98% of the time it's black and white. It's you either win or lose. So what do you learn from those particular situations, and how do you use it moving forward?
All right, Bradford, it's been an absolute pleasure, even though the Lions come up short. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On NFL. Check out The Daily Show with Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Like today's video, subscribe to the channel. Bradford, Nat, and I will be back on Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And the Lions will look to bounce back after coming up short against the Vikings at home, 27-24 the final. He's Bradford Banta. I'm Jake Riepma. Thanks for watching. See you next time on the Locked On Lions Squad.